Well, good morning and welcome to our monthly Goleta Regional Action Plan meeting, where we welcome community members to join us to discuss the impacts of homelessness throughout the city of Goleta. My name is Landon Rank. I'm the operations manager for SBACT, and I'm joined by my colleague, Eric Meyer. We have with us today Mayor Paul Perotti from the city of Goleta, Councilmember Stuart Kasdan as well. And then Chuck, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, and I'll introduce my boss. We also have the Director of Neighborhood Services, Jaime Valdez, and I am the Homeless Services Coordinator for the City of Goleta, if you don't know me already. I'm going to put my email and phone number in the chat for people who may be new to this meeting. I'm happy to be and eager to be your first point of contact regarding any kind of homeless-related issues here in the city. And I want to thank SBACT for their ongoing leadership in terms of bringing together our community.
And Jaime, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Not a big fan of the term boss, but I think it's funny. Anyways, good morning, everyone. Jaime Valdez, Director of Neighborhood Services. So glad y'all could be here today. Got a lot to cover, so I think we can, I don't know if you want to do any other introductions, but we got a pretty sizable group.
Yeah, we do. I actually just wanted to introduce a couple of concepts for anyone who might be new to this meeting. So in addition to these monthly meetings where we'll discuss issues and then take the time to strategize responses, the City of Goleta also has a City Assist link where you can report encampments or individuals in need that you may see. I put the link there in the chat window. City of Goleta also has a homelessness response directory. So this is intended for community members to be able to know what you should do if you see a trash pile, or if you see an encampment, or if you see an individual who's clearly experiencing a mental health crisis. So we encourage you to check that out just so you have some of those resources right at your fingertips for in case anything should arise. We'll also be planning some different neighborhood walks. We did an Old Town neighborhood walk in the month of March, and then working with Chuck to plan another walk where we'll just engage with business owners, try and help equip them with knowing what the resources are available to them to address impacts of homelessness, as well as just checking out where are the high impact areas. And community trainings. We're hoping to plan a couple before the summer gets into full swing. Just so people can learn a little bit more about issues of homelessness and really all of the resources in our community. So to get us started, I actually wanted to ask if we could have a quick update about the transit corridor cleanups. In addition to the work that we're doing with the City of Goleta, there's properties throughout the City of Goleta that are owned by either the Union Pacific Railroad or Caltrans. And so they are in charge of cleaning up those corridors. And so we know there's some activities that are currently happening. So I don't know, Lucille, if you're able to share, or Al.
I can share a bit. Sorry, I've got multiple screens going on here. So Caltrans, it looks like, did complete the Goleta area last week. They were planning to coordinate with Union Pacific Railroad. I don't see Lupe on here today. But Union Pacific, I think, was still waiting on a contract for case management. So they were not doing it at the same time. So I think what I saw and what I think others have seen, outreach teams also report, is that everybody moved from the Caltrans side of the fence to the Union Pacific side of the fence. And this is what happens when we don't have enough shelter bed availability. But my understanding is that Caltrans and Union Pacific typically are able to avoid any of the Caltrans is able to avoid the Boise ruling because the grants pass ruling noted that if there is immediate public safety concerns, they can remove or clear any encampments without shelter being available. Union Pacific is private property, so they can remove its trespassing at any time. And I reached out to Union Pacific a couple times last week and again this morning and have not heard back about their timing of their contract and their plans to remove encampments. But what we're seeing right now is that people just move from the Caltrans side to Union Pacific.
A question from Chuck.
It's just a comment, Lucille, because Lucille and I both deal with these things every day. We use terms and language that people don't always know. And I have to say that virtually every day I have a conversation with somebody about this because it is a very frustrating situation, I think, for all people involved. The way the Supreme Court ruled is that if people are camping on public land, we can't forcibly remove them. So a lot of times people from our community, a lot of us feel like, well, if we could just find a place for people to go, wouldn't that be great? And it would be great. But until there is a shelter or housing for folks directly in Goleta, it's very difficult to justify. In fact, we're in violation of the law if we don't have something supporting us to move people along. And so what Lucille just said is interesting. I was wondering it myself. Caltrans is a public agency, but they remove people based on the danger to both the people and motorists.
Correct.
And she also said that UPRR, which is the railroad folks, that's private property. So for those of you who are on the call who may have impacts to your private property as a result of homelessness, please know that the appropriate response is 911. That in fact, it is important for all of us to recognize that in some respects, getting people the help they need sometimes involves first responders. And so if people are being impacted by homelessness on their private property, they really should call 911. If this is something that has been ongoing, then we encourage people to call the non-emergency line at the sheriff's. And we have, I'm not sure if he's on the call today, but we have a community resource deputy here.
Eric, check this out. With On Deck, we could get a small business open.
So I just want to let people know that there are, that's Landon mentioned the Goleta, the response directory. We have a whole system in place that respond directly to the issues that we're raising. Thank you.
And I'll note, I should have mentioned and giving kudos to the city of Goleta and to the outreach providers, many of whom are on this call. We did over the past few weeks, we have provided regular updates about what shelter beds are available, especially in South County, and the transit corridor beds that are funded by a state grant dedicated to resolving encampments along the transit corridor. Those are all full. And that's been, especially with CityNet leading that and coordinating with other providers like Good Samaritan Shelter, New Beginnings, Behavior Wellness, and others. So the beds that we had available are full, and some people have moved from those encampments into shelter that was available. We just don't have enough shelter for everybody. So that's why we see that movement.
On the bottom.
And I would just ask, we have about 30 participants. So if you're not speaking at the moment, please mute your microphones so we don't get any background comments or noise. It's just hard to keep track. So thank you so much for participating. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Jaime. Well, I just wanted to update everyone. So that contract, if you were on the meeting last week, I'd let everyone know that has been taken care of. It's ready to go. I'm actually coordinating with the supervisor of the contract that runs that out of our Orange County office to coordinate my outreach team out here with the outreach employees that they have for that specific contract. So as soon as I get any updates on when we expect them to be down here, I will definitely coordinate that and let you guys know about that. But we are getting our teams together to obviously go before and after. As Chuck and Lucille know, they've been involved in all the updates of what our team has been doing over here. We are really short-staffed today, just to give the community know. So we will do our best to connect and provide any community services that are requested of us today. But we will be back up to full staff tomorrow. But just wanted to give you that update, along with any updates I'll have once I meet with the supervisor for that contract on when we hope to be getting out there with UPRR. And it won't be us, just let you know, our staff here won't be the ones that we don't go along with UPR as they're doing the clearings. We provide the service before and then immediately after.
Yeah,
and 20 out of the 22 beds that we do have are filled right now. But so we do have a couple beds available for the city of Goleta that we're looking to get filled up during this time.
Go ahead, Randy.
Hey, thanks. Randy Brown, facilities manager here in Goleta at a commercial property off the Castilian Business Parkway. And I just wanted to, provide kudos and praise to all the teams that have been working together. My commute in, I take the 101 and I noticed a lot of the hardworking men and women on the freeway cleaning up the vegetation and so forth. It looks great. And I just noticed and maybe this is on the schedule, I just wanted to ask the question, but I noticed from the 101 southbound from, I guess that's Fairview to Patterson is really cleared up. But from Los Carneros to Fairview, that area, I don't know if that's on the schedule or not. I noticed that area is a little overgrown, and there's also, I think, maybe some abandoned encampments there.
I want to check my email from them. I think they said that it was hard, Caltrans said it was difficult for them to access because of some water present. Does that ring a bell, Chuck or Jaime? Okay.
So sorry, you're asking for between Los Carneros and Fairview or further down, Randy?
Yeah, that's where I noticed it was, from Los Carneros to Fairview. Because the other side from Fairview, if you keep going on the southbound from Fairview to Patterson was where it looks like they were working in the last, a couple of weeks, and it looks great. But if you just went a little bit more, I guess, north. But maybe it's the water that you mentioned, Lucille.
Yeah, I'm reading it. It says we'll not be able to remove camps at Los Carneros on ramp due to creek that we have to cross is still too high. So they last week their plan was Glen, Annie, and Fairview.
Cool. Well, thanks for the update.
Thank you. Other questions for Lucille from the County Department of Housing and Community Development, or Al from CityNet? Well, thank you both for the update. A few other updates to share. So SB Act is working with the City of Goleta to explore possible sites for a neighborhood navigation center. And so the idea with this would be a pop-up site where we could have a lot of different homelessness services all at once. Typically it's in a park or a parking lot, or it can be in an indoor setting. And the idea with this is that we maybe have it once a week for a couple of hours as a consistent place where people know that they can connect with service providers, so that we can help encourage those relationships that allow people to build trust and eventually be more interested in moving towards homeless, or towards housing, I should say. We know that this can be a difficult and long process, and so we want to try and facilitate that trust in any way that we can. So right now we're vetting some different sites throughout the city of Goleta. We're looking at a couple of faith communities who we've talked with, a couple of business parks that we've reached out to some business park owners. If anyone knows of a site that you think would be worthwhile, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Chuck or myself. I'll put my email address in the chat window. But we really want to begin offering these services, both as a way to just be able to meet people where they're at, but really to be able to build that trust to help people exit homelessness. Yes, Randy.
I'm just wondering if there's any more possibility of or discussion about that little sheriff's building right there in the middle of Old Town that Deputy Rauch had said might be possible.
I believe Deputy Rauch is out on vacation this week, but I'll follow up with him when he returns. I know it's owned by the county sheriff's department, and so there will be some complications there.
Landon, just to clarify, so that building is actually owned by the bank, Community West Bank, and they provide it to the sheriff's office, I think, for one of those weird dollar a year leases that no one ever collects. But the one thing that we've been told is that it is really, really tight. But I know Community West Bank's on-site manager said he would be open to it when we had our March walkthrough. So we'll follow up again with Deputy Rauch to see. We don't want to offer it up since it's offered to the sheriffs and not necessarily the city. But if there's a way to use it better, we absolutely would love to. And then the reason we're also looking for additional sites in Goleta for the neighborhood navigation center was that we didn't necessarily want to put every single offering in Old Town for homelessness services. So if we can have a little bit spread throughout the city, it doesn't look like we're placing everything just in Old Town. We're thrilled with the Housing Authority's upcoming project, Buena Tierra, but we also don't want to have everything just co-located in the same exact spots unless they make sense. And in this case, we're trying to kind of spread the reach. But we're open to whatever. If you have a site or a willing property owner, oftentimes people who suffer some of the consequences or problems are often willing to be part of the solution. So please let us know if that comes up in your course of speaking with folks.
Yes, Taylor.
Hey guys, this is Taylor Horn with Majestic Assets. We're a large commercial property owner in the Goleta area. You've been on many of these meetings. You guys have heard from me before. I'm just kind of curious, how come we're not just going out to parks and using those as they're already a city asset? And it seems like a lot of these homeless people are already at a lot of these parks as well. I know that we've been talking amongst many of the different property owners around the Goleta area, and we want to be helpful and we want to do whatever we can, but also we're trying to protect our properties. So once, these homeless encampments, these people come over and they realize, oh, there's an open gym, oh, there's open showers, oh, there's restrooms that we can use. That kind of deters a lot of us from doing that. But so I'm just trying to think of other options that could be used, that are already readily available to you guys. And just kind of getting, if you guys have had any pushback from any of the other companies, this is probably why.
Thanks, Taylor. I can speak to that a little bit. So this is partly why we reach out to faith communities as well, because many of them already have a vested interest in these issues. But the more we can offer a more dignified setting, the better. Mainly, it allows the relationships to be a little more to be fostered in a setting that's a little more calm. It's just a welcoming setting. And so if we're able to find indoor settings, great. If we can't, we try and make the best with whatever we have, whether that's an enclosed area. We also know that there's weather concerns. And so if we're able to find settings that are not going to be affected by inclement weather, all the better for the sake of consistency. But yeah, trying to explore as many options as we can here.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Landon, Deborah Hamrick. I would have concerns about offering a navigation center near to the sheriff's department, and not only because I don't think that does show good quality partnership. In the past, there's always been that hesitation to bring in law enforcement, even though the sheriff's department Goleta just wants to be helpful. I don't find that to be a comfortable situation. It sounds like what you're trying to do. I do know that as the weather's getting warmer, we've had some very successful navigation centers, as you mentioned, inside church buildings or other buildings, where we could bring all of the partners and as well have, lunch and a movie playing on a screen or on a wall, and a place to just chairs where people could just relax and put their feet up. We even had some cots, people relaxed and didn't have to worry about things going on around them and had a nap. And it was very successful. I mean, I think if we could find another building where it could be an inside event like that, I mean, they're outside, people are outside enough. People experiencing homelessness are outside all the time. But I'm a little hesitant to support the sheriff's department idea, even though that was great of them to offer.
Thanks, Deborah. Yeah, and this is all very much just in the exploration phase. Even if we get a property owner that is willing to house us, we still have to go through a whole vetting process to determine whether it's even viable location-wise, whether it offers the amenities we'll need, et cetera. So please know this is not happening really anytime soon, but we appreciate the input. With that, we do want to open it up for community member concerns and questions. So there are 3 different outreach agencies on this call today. We have CityNet, which is one of our primary homeless service outreach providers in the city of Goleta, as well as Good Samaritan, who are also offering the outreach services through the county. And then we have the Safe Parking Program, Deborah, who just spoke, which works specifically with individuals who are experiencing vehicular homelessness. And so we have all these providers in the call with us who can speak to some of their specific experiences, as well as City of Goleta staff who work with many of these individuals as well. So we want to open it up for any of our community members and business owners, since there's quite a few of you on the call today.
Hi, this is Kimber from Communify. I'm wearing two hats today as a resident, of course. One of the questions I was like, who's responsible when we see abandoned shopping carts? I've noticed kind of like an increase in that. Like, who do we call? How do we? I don't know what to do about those. It might be random, and I don't want to make the assumption that this is only, you know, the problem of the homeless, but I'm seeing a lot more of them in the area that I live. So I wasn't really sure who do we call when it comes to maybe trying to get those off the streets, or I don't know what happens to them.
Yeah, George.
Cool. Good morning. Hi, I'm George Thompson. I'm the Parks and Open Space Manager for the city. We can address shopping carts via our City Assist program. So if you go to the city's website, we have an interface there where you can report that, and then it gets routed to the appropriate staff. So we'll send someone out and collect those. That's our short-term response. We are trying to work with the business owners to basically have them institute a program where they pay for the retrieval. We're not getting a ton of traction on that, but we're continuing that effort. So easiest way is just go to the city's website. There's a prompt on the homepage to enter a City Assist, and then we'll follow up usually within 2 days.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. This is Paul in Public Works Streets Maintenance Division. So we've been working with environmental services, and I'll contact them. We try not to have our crews picking up carts. We aren't a trash service or a pickup service for carts. There is a service for that called Track that handles all the departments that have all their carts out there, whether it's Home Depot and all the other ones you'll see out there. So we work with environmental services, and they do a general pickup every 2 weeks, and they work with Track to pick those up. So like George said, go on to our service requests, and we're going to do our best to make sure those are picked up. So thank you for the question.
All right, thank you.
I want to echo that in general. The City Assist system is, for those of you who've worked with either IT providers or sometimes online retailers, and you put in a request for service, that's we do the same thing at the city, and we're actually, I think, pretty good at keeping track of all of these requests that come in. And so particularly for homelessness related issues, I encourage you to do the same thing. If you see encampments, I think, I forget who it was. It was Randy, I guess, who mentioned the encampments off the freeway. Go ahead and put in a ticket because that keeps our eyes on it. It's a written record of what's going on. And I often create tickets from the conversations and phone calls that I get. So, you know, it's a system we're happy with, or we like using it for accountability purposes.
Yeah, the other part, and I'll just jump on that, is when we have these tickets, we have, performance metrics on, how many did we get? We can code them to homelessness so we can get a better sense of how many items we're getting. You'll probably be shocked to hear on this call that the #1 call for service by far in the city of Goleta is nothing to do with homelessness. It's actually abandoned vehicles or illegally parked vehicles. It dwarfs everything else, but as we're able to keep more and more stats on items that do or are associated with homelessness, that allows us to even better kind of pinpoint, okay, well, this week we had 30 calls or 30 contacts on it, and some weeks it's probably 1 or 2. I don't think I've ever seen it go past 10 or 15 in a week, but we might get 70 calls or something like that on vehicles. So just for perspective, it helps us on multiple fronts, and then it allows us to kind of keep notes and go back and look and say, okay, this has been historically a problematic area.
I'd like to speak. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Michelle Owen, and I live on the corner of Del Norte and Glen Annie. And I wanted to say thank you very much for the cleanup under the freeway across from us. It happened last week, but unfortunately, with that cleanup, the people left a lot of belongings, 2 very large piles of their belongings next to our home. There's a lot of oak trees, and it's become quite the spot for people to leave things. Like the previous speaker said, the shopping carts and stuff are there all the time. And I was just wondering if there's some timeline of when the belongings are going to be picked up. It's today even I came home and there's some sort of like go-kart or something right in front of my bushes, and I'm like, okay, that's either somebody left their property or it's somebody stolen property. What do I do with that? So as a concerned citizen, I just was hoping to get some answers.
Hey, Michelle, I'll try to take a crack at the response. Again, I'm George Thompson. I'm the Parks and Open Space Manager. I was actually out across the street from you last week on Friday. Got a report of some of the materials from the Glen Annie camp had been moved to that open lot behind the mobile station. Looks like that pile of stuff has since been relocated. I'm not sure who did, but perhaps it was moved to the new camp just within a stone's throw of your residence along the creek there. So in terms of our process, a lot of the folks on the call today work on the outreach team. So try to get folks that are experiencing homelessness to move into a shelter or reconnect with family. Otherwise, move them off the streets. Until that is successful, we don't have a good mechanism to clear active encampments. And so we'll work with the encampment resident to try to reduce the amount of trash that they have. And so we'll provide that service. But until the camp is actually vacated, our public works department can't actively relocate those encampments. That said, for your particular spot, we are gonna have our parks maintenance crew come out and do some weed whipping along the curb edge and then remove that dead shrub there along the corner.
Well, that's great news, but the stuff has not been removed. There's 2 very large piles of belongings tarped. One of them has a propane tank sticking out at the edge. So this causes concern for fire problems. I don't know what's under those tarps. So not only for my family and property, but for our whole community. I'm on the edge of El Encanto Heights on the first house. So these are, deep concerns, and obviously my family's safety. And yes, there is another 2 people tenting, I want to say 100 or 200 yards behind our house, close to the creek. And, that in itself, I mean, the high school kids all run from track and field. They run from the high school around and usually up Glen Annie and then across Del Norte back to the school. And the individuals there, are concerning because we just don't know if they're dangerous or, hopefully they're fine. And I sympathize with people. I feel very bad for people experiencing homelessness, but there's got to be a better place to have facilities to use the bathroom and take showers and, and not make our community the dump zone. It's just upsetting coming home and seeing these piles of stuff for over a week now. And I'm just wondering how long that's going to be until that stuff is removed.
So we can't, Michelle, I really appreciate your concern. And I've actually spoken with several residents in your area, as well as the high school. I think George can confirm that the bulk of the materials and the residents, are they on city property? Is that true? Yeah. So we recognize that the city of Goleta that this is an issue. And as I was saying before, we can't forcibly remove people. So CityNet, which is their organization is on this call, is meeting every day with those residents that you're talking about, those homeless people. And the goal is to get them to move. Once they move, once they relinquish the property that they want to get rid of and tell us what the trash is, then the city will go in and remove those materials. So I can't give you an exact calendar date. Sometimes these things take a fair amount of time. The good news is that these people are at least talking to our homeless outreach folks and have indicated an interest in finding a permanent place. So now we're working on finding those locations where we can move people. For those of you who don't know, the Buena Tierra project, it's a former Super 8 motel, is going to be permanent supportive housing. John Polanski's on the call representing that project with the County Housing Authority. The county is developing over the next year, the hope is 400 units of interim housing in a model that's the organization that produces those units is called Dignity Moves. And this is what I think an extremely exciting and important change in how we do business as homeless service providers, because each of these units are like little homes, and they provide the most attractive alternative to living on the streets that I can think of aside from permanent housing. And so we're working, City of Goleta is working with Dignity Moves, the county's working with Dignity Moves. The hope is that over the next year, and I know this doesn't sound good, Michelle, to your concerns, but the hope is over the next year, we're going to see a huge number of units created that will allow for us to be able to relocate people. And then it's not as you saw with Caltrans, they've relocated people, but they've created a problem for the rest of the community, unfortunately. And so it's our hope not to do that with these residents, but to help them find a more permanent alternative.
Well, thank you so much for listening to my concerns. I do really appreciate all of you. I know there's no easy answer, and I am certainly not, I want them to be homed, and I want people to be safe and have clean environment. I'm just a concerned resident that just wanted to make sure that there's something going on to help the situation. So thank you so much.
I just want to jump in and clarify that we did propose to the Board of Supervisors that over the next several years that we will end unsheltered homelessness in our county through 400 plus interim housing units. And that's really buying all communities, the county included, time to build and develop that permanent housing like Buena Tierra or other home key or other affordable housing developments. But it will take several years. We're still, Dignity Moves is still actively fundraising, and the county and Continuum of Care and other partners like behavioral wellness are still actively seeking public funding to support those. So I don't want to promise the next year. It's going to take a few years.
Thank you, Lucia.
And then I would just add for the folks on this call, I believe on May 9th, we're having a homeless issue standing committee meeting for a subcommittee of the city council where they'll be discussing a high fire risk ordinance. So these are, again, multiple tools trying to find ways to limit risk in the city for potential fires, for environmental impacts, those kinds of things. And so, Michelle, I know it's not fast enough in terms of what you're looking for, but we have to take, kind of a multi-prong approach to this the societal issue, and it's a housing issue. So for those that are on the call and that would like to participate, it's on May 9th. I can put the details in the chat shortly, but the idea is to get feedback, and then so that way we could preclude certain areas on public lands that we can't really allow there to be the encampments because of, people said it before, open fires, fire risk, propane tanks, you name it. And I know this is even more and more sensitive. So we had a lot of rain, the last couple of months, which will, quickly become dry and potential fuel. So we want to get ahead of this and do it in a way that's humane, but also to something that gives the city the ability to enforce more public safety type responses, other than just being kind of left with our hands tied based on the Boise decision.
Thank you all. Go to Octavio.
Hi, how are we doing? Good morning. Just had a question specifically on two legislation processes coming down the pipeline at the state level. Chuck, you kind of mentioned it. I think you alluded to it. Dignity Moves, the Santa Barbara downtown housing. Is that going to be something similar in Goleta with SB 634, the opportunity housing? And then if you, perhaps you or somebody else could speak to specifically tomorrow's Santa Barbara hearing on private property on public areas. Will Goleta be doing something like that where homeless individuals can't have shopping carts, backpacks that can't be moved readily available quickly? Is there going to be an ordinance hearing on that anytime soon?
So thank you, Octavio, for that. And I'd like to know more about the issues you're raising, specifically the state legislation. Did you say SB 634? Is that the one you were referring to?
Correct. Low barrier navigation opportunity.
Yeah. So
housing.
there, as Octavio is pointing out, the state legislature and the governor have been extremely concerned and extremely generous in terms of providing resources to specifically address homelessness. And we are making use of some of that legislation in the past, certainly some of the funding. I'm going to let Lucille talk specifically about Dignity Moves because the county is working with them on the construction, and she can mention where some of those are moving forward. In terms of your, I'm not aware of what's going on in the city of Santa Barbara on the item you're talking about.
I can speak to that too.
Okay, but in the city of Goleta, Jaime just spoke about our attempt to handle this issue of public property and camping. And that's going to be discussed on May 9th. You're more than welcome, Octavia, to attend. Our focus is going to be on areas of high fire danger specifically. So yeah, that's, I mean, this tension, Octavia's putting his finger on really what is the current biggest issue facing homelessness and cities and counties, which is how much are we allowed to move people? And the current law is that we're not. But cities and counties are experimenting with laws and processes that will allow us to maybe put a little more pressure on people. But it's a balancing act. And of course, our priority is to make sure that people have a place to live, a place to go.
I'll speak to, so SB 634 Dignity Moves will be at the state legislature this Wednesday for a hearing. It's still pending legislation. So it's, they'll be there. And then tomorrow, the city of Santa Barbara has an ordinance committee, and I just got the notification on Friday when it was publicly posted. So I haven't had a chance to read all of it, but the city's ordinance committee is meeting, City of Santa Barbara's ordinance committee is meeting tomorrow about personal property storage.
Yeah, my biggest concern with that is more or less if you have an individual who's actually on the side of the sidewalk on tourism purposes, more than a shopping cart, they can't have that at their invisible sites, nor and also forced to have only a shopping cart. So effectively, it makes less homelessness illegal to some extent. So that was my concern with that.
Yeah,
I know this is
sorry, just real quick. So the big issue, Octavio, is it's kind of what's the threshold, right, for a homeless individual with how much stuff they have. We cannot in any way, shape, or form on the public right of way on the sidewalk. If there's a homeless individual just hanging out, there is no ability for us to make them move. But then it starts to get a little dicier, right? If they have a bunch of stuff and then it starts, blocking the sidewalk, or it starts to infringe on people's access to like a storefront, right? That's where it starts to get harder and harder. And then it's not black or white always as to what we can push on. So we at the city have taken the position to be very conservative, and we do not force the issue unless it's absolutely necessary. Some people may not agree with that, but we're also trying to do two things. One's the humane response, and two is in many ways too is the legally protected response. And so, many people on the call might not be big fans of it if it's affecting your property or kind of in your area, but it's the tough balancing act we have to deal with. And until there's major changes, the guidance that we have from our city attorney's office and in general from management is, unless it's absolutely critically necessary, we just don't. So.
And I think both, well, our local outreach teams do have access to storage for people who are moving from encampments into shelter or other ways being displaced. And I think they'll probably confirm that is regularly used. So we do have that storage available.
And I would just toss in that we will have an ordinance coming up or a discussion about one in the coming homelessness committee meeting. And that's one where the concern is associated with those who are camping in locations that are not safe because of fire risk. And, you know, this is one that's not safe both for the individuals in question and the community. And there's a rationale for doing it. We're not criminalizing homelessness or anything like that, but we're recognizing there's a health and safety concern. And that's a big issue to make sure that there's no fires that are spread inadvertently as we head into fire season. So if people are interested in that, come to the homelessness committee.
Thank you all. Deborah. Deborah, you're muted.
I just want to say first, thank you to Michelle for the information that she shared. It's really important for us to hear sentences like, you know, it's the unknown. You know, we don't know what the, you know, what the people experiencing homelessness in our neighborhood are like. We don't know if we're safe. And, you know, it creates anxiety, which I understand. I actually used to live out there. So I wanted to just share with her that it's really important that we continue to hear those conversations. And it's really important that we have advocates like her who give us this information, who also say, you know, I wish them the best. I want them to be housed. And just a little bit of what goes on out there that's behind the scenes is there's actually two people that were living in the Glen Annie encampment who our agency has received as rapid rehousing referrals. We're working on a home for them. One of the two of them has just received a full-time job and is a little nervous about moving because, you know, once you establish a comfort zone, you know, it becomes your home. So there is a lot going on there. And if you ever feel like it, it would be wonderful. Could be me, could be any outreach worker for you to consider meeting your neighbor because, you know, right now that's kind of who they are, is your neighbor. And I think you'll find, as I have over the past 20 something years in outreach, that there's some pretty incredible neighbors out there. But, you know, thank you for your honesty and for helping us to understand all of this.
I'll just echo that too and say that immediately after this meeting and every week, Chuck facilitates a outreach team meeting in which all of the outreach providers are able to discuss specific individuals that we're not able to share on this call for confidentiality purposes, but it's helpful for us to hear anything from community members for that reason so that we can strategize as outreach providers. Mayor Perotti?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for participating, and great to see a large number of folks on the call. I'm just jumping in to echo what Councilmember Kasdan just mentioned about our ordinance, and I haven't seen the proposed new ordinance as of yet, but he captured a good snapshot of what we're looking at. But I also want to say that it will be a hybrid meeting, so you can come to City Hall. We'll be in conference room 1, or you can participate on Zoom. So please come, share your ideas, and listen to what we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Perotti. We still have a few more minutes left. We'll have to keep it open for community members to share.
I'll just ask another question. I understood that there was someone on the call regarding homeless in vehicles, and there might be a space for them to go, or we've had some RVs parked on our private property in a part of our campus that's a little bit like back, and so we didn't notice it right away. When we did catch it, we just end up calling Deputy Rauch, and his team kind of comes and talks to them. But we have a team here that we can approach them and just tell them where to go before having to call first responders, if there's any kind of guidance or an area where we can tell them where to go. Because I think one person in particular was like formerly at the Target lot, then they got asked to leave, and then they came here, and then anyway, so just I don't know where the right location is.
So Randy, let me just and Deborah and others may have a response, but what happens sometimes is some individuals who are in RVs or vans prefer to just try to stay under the radar in parking lots. When you participate in a safe parking program, there's usually some rules and restrictions and requirements, and some individuals don't do well with those or don't want to entertain them. So we may have mixed. It's not just as easy as saying, oh, there's a one giant parking lot over here, feel free to go over there and hang out, but more so that's on a path to try to get people housed, or at least make sure that they're in places they should be. That requires though people to kind of show their ID, show their registration, kind of commit, and then move based on a timeline that's established by the safe parking program. So you'll have a lot of individuals that are just frankly are like, I'm not interested in that. I'll take my shot over by CVS pharmacy or somewhere else. So we try to work with the folks that are willing to do it, and if it works well, I think that's helpful. But other individuals may just choose to just try to find another spot until somebody tells them they can't be there. And I don't want to take anyone else's thunder, so if anyone wants to add anything, feel free.
Sure, I certainly do. Randy, safe parking is incredibly low barrier. It is true that you do have to leave in the morning at a certain time, and that can be challenging. Goleta has some really quality safe parking locations though. And we do have, for people in RVs, we do have nighttime and daytime spots. We don't have daytime spots for vehicles because they can actually, find opportunities. They can go somewhere and park and not get ticketed or towed. So hopefully you have our flyers and our phone number and our business cards. And then the only thing that I'm concerned about right now is I was just told that from another client that one of our funding sources may have dried up. And so I'm going to check on that today, because the only barrier is that, our insurance and of course the people hosting the safe parking lots do require that all vehicles are registered and insured. Now, up to now, we've been able to assist people without, so I'm going to check on that. But the SB Act may have flexible funding that can assist with that. But those are our main barriers. So if you need our flyers, you need our business cards, I would say that Goleta still has some openings, and Chuck will probably give us more lots if we need them. So
I had a question.
Deborah, will you put your contact information in the chat window? Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned there are daytime locations that are safe parking locations for the RVs. Could you explain how that how that works and so forth? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so we have daytime lots all throughout Santa Barbara and Goleta, and so when they exit their nighttime lot at 7 a.m., we try to make sure that the daytime lots start at the same time. Every now and then we tell them we have to pull over and get a Starbucks and then pull in. But they're confidential locations, but they're some of them are obvious. You can see them from the street, and we've got a couple that are off the beaten path, but they just pull out of there and pull into their other lot and go back at night again.
And we have that in Goleta? We have both locations?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
See how good we're doing keeping them confidential.
Yeah, well, so two things. One is that we have, and I don't know when Chuck and Jaime can say, but coming up in one of our forthcoming homelessness committee meetings, we'll be taking up revisions to our existing safe parking ordinance. And so I think they've already reached out to New Beginning to get comments and so forth. But the other thing is, I didn't think that our safe parking ordinance covered the daytime opportunities. I didn't think that was included in it.
Perhaps you're thinking of city limits. You know, we've still got, right? I mean, there's the area that's neither city nor, I mean, that's county.
Oh, yours,
right?
you're
The
talking about-
unincorporated areas. And I mean, we still consider that our Goleta Day parking because it's almost there, right there.
Well, that would be very helpful then to see what the language, I guess we should look at what the county's language is. Then you're talking then about this is the county area. And so that might be helpful for us to see if that's useful for us
Or
to
the
use.
city of, I'm sorry, or the city of Santa Barbara. They have several daytime lots for safe parkers and RVs. And I will also mention to you that the Goleta lots are getting full. And so I'm hoping that you're considering an expansion. And I will also mention to you that there's suddenly a lot of families in our program. And that's not been the norm. And so, yeah, anything you guys can help us figure out would be great. We did just house a family of 6. And so that was like incredible in itself. But yeah, a lot of families now.
So Chuck,
I'm wondering if you, I'm sorry, I was just wondering if you can make it public where people can be in a safe location for the people that are experiencing homelessness, you know, and it's so sad to hear about the families. You know, obviously it's a huge issue. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay, Michelle. Again, it's always helpful to hear from people. Right now, of course, the parking lots, they are confidential. And you do have to schedule an appointment and an intake so that we can not only take care of the paperwork that's required by the grant and make sure that we understand the needs of each person. We provide full case management as well to people in our lots. And so we do, and we have client liaisons that check on the lots 2 to 3 times each evening just to make sure that everybody's doing well and to avoid, if you make a public announcement, then not it, you know, just everyone, of course, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people will park first and then try to enroll later. And it's really hard to remove people once they've, you know, COVID proved to us that it's really hard to remove people if you let if you let people start parking somewhere. But yeah, so they, like I said, they are, you know, they are confidential, and I would hope that even you could have some of our flyers and cards and help go to these meetings. Please go to the you know, the committee meeting on May 9th and whenever the homeless committee meeting is, and just encourage them to allow more safe parking spots.
Thank you, Deborah. And if you'll put your email in the chat, that would be great. Mary.
Okay, am I unmuted there? I just wanted to make you all aware of a situation I've been dealing with in the last 6 weeks probably, and perhaps, I mean, I've probably reached out to several of you here, but this is a situation that I feel like we need. I mean, look at all these organizations that it needs to have a solution for the future. So a gal was parked in a no parking zone, got towed overnight, and discovered the next day she couldn't get her car out of the lot because she didn't have current registration and current insurance. So we encouraged her to get, you know, the current registration, current insurance, plus she had some tickets down in LA she had to take care of first. So by the time she got those 3 things done, it had been at least 2 or 3 weeks since her car had been towed. Well, now the fees to get her car out were over $2,000. This was several weeks ago. And the fee keeps going up at $120 a day or whatever. She's at Thomas Towing. Her car, which is actually a nice car that she had lived in for over a year, is now in Thomas Towing. We have looked for various resources to try to get her car out, but it's probably today over $4,000 to get her car out. This is a $10,000 car. She said that she has the pink slip for, but she has no way to get that car out unless something's happened in the last week that I don't know about. So it's very sad that there's no way that some agency couldn't help people right off the bat, remove their car from this daily additional 100 and 120, whatever it is, dollars, so that it's now become impossible for her to get her car out. She doesn't know anybody that can loan her $4,000. And so I'm just bringing this to all of your attention so that perhaps in the future there could be a better system so that a car, once it's removed from the city, doesn't have to just stay in this towing lot and become less and less accessible to the owner.
So, Mary, hey, and how are you?
Hi, Debbie.
It's a great conversation, and this is something that we've looked for a long time. She reached out a little bit late. The bill was already $3,000 when she reached out, and there isn't any funding for that. And I think this is where we have to be very preventive, right? Like when I'm out doing outreach, I intentionally make a note of any expired tags and I leave a message on the car, please contact us, because if we can remedy that problem. And our public defender's office has started stepping in and helping people who basically are being criminalized for being homeless, right? And so they've got outstanding tickets that are preventing them from getting their registration. They're preventing them from getting their license and getting a job. So, if we can just be more preventive. Unfortunately, she reached out at a point where, there's just not that amount of funding, that we could help her with, but sorry.
Mary and Deborah, I would like could you reach out to me? I put my name in the chat for Mary, my phone number in the chat for Mary. Let's, I have access to some discretionary funds that are surrounding about housing, and I'd like to have a conversation. I don't want to say yes or no, but I'd like to be able to get a little bit more detail and see how me and my team can support.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
we are
actually,
at 10 a.m. right now, so I don't want to keep anyone too long here. Councilmember Katzen, do you want to say one last thing?
Yeah, I wonder if circumstances like this that come up, if somebody can create a GoFundMe page or something like that, it's the sort of thing that people might want to help on. But if we already have a resolution possible, then never mind.
Thank you. And that's partly what these calls are for as well, is for all of us to just be in the same room so we can figure out solutions together. So with that, I will say thank you all for being here
Landon,
today.
this is John, really quick. I just wanted to do a quick update on Buena Tierra, if I could.
Yeah. You have a little echo, John.
Oh, okay. How's that?
It's still the same, but it's audible. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, we're still looking at the end of the year, but that's primarily because of our difficulty getting a switchgear. The work on the units will most likely be done by the end of summer, very beginning of fall. So again, I'm trying to put the word out as much as I can. I'll actually be up in Sacramento at a home key convening later this week. But if anyone knows how to get a switchgear sooner than the end of the year, please feel free to let me know. Or if you have one in your backyard or in a vacant building that you own, that would be great. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, John. John, with the County Housing Authority working on the Buena Tierra Permanent Supportive Housing Project at the former Super 8 Motel in Old Town Goleta. All right, with that, we'll close. Thank you all for being here today.